Hey guys, it's been a little while since I've done a GoPro setup video. The last time I did it was with the GoPro Hero 9, and now we're up to the GoPro Hero 11. This is a 11 mini. However, if you're watching this video and you just have a standard 11, this should apply as well. I've pretty much been tinkering with these cameras since the beginning. This is my first Hero right here that I had in 2011, and now we are 11 generations past that. So I wanted to talk about this thing, how I set it up, and how I shoot with it. Really, the main difference with the 11 is it's lighter, does not have the screen on the back, no interchangeable battery, and overall, I prefer shooting this, especially on a light helmet like I have here. So one thing that was added with these new cameras is the new 8:7 aspect ratio. I consider this sort of to be the trail bikes of aspect ratios. It's not really the best at anything, but it can be cropped both vertical and horizontal, since it is nearly a square format. I will use this mode occasionally, but I still prefer to shoot in a 9:16 aspect ratio if possible. One of the main things that I'm doing to kind of set my footage apart is the use of these ND filters. This is the one from Polar Pro. They come in a pack of 3. This is an ND16. However, it comes with an ND8 and an ND32 for brighter or less bright conditions. The main thing you can do with these is the ability to be able to lock your shutter. So I'm able to lock my shutter at a 48th of a second if I'm shooting 24 frames per second, which really gives you that good motion blur that you see in the videos I post. That really gives you a sense of speed that I feel like can be lost with these cameras if you don't utilize these ND filters. So pretty much what I'm using this camera for is going to be for YouTube or Instagram, and depending on what I'm shooting for, I'll set this camera up accordingly. If I'm going to be shooting for Instagram, I'll orient the camera vertically with the 90-degree shoulder mount. Luckily, with my 100% Trajecta, I can mount it off center, and when I add the shoulder mount, it pretty much lines up in the middle of the helmet. The other thing I like about this helmet is you can easily get the visor out of the way, so it's not going to be in your shot. Depending on the helmet you have, you might have to fiddle around with it. Some helmets work better to have the GoPro mounted on the visor. Other helmets work better to have it mounted on the helmet itself under the visor. You're kind of have to experiment and tinker with them. No helmet is really the same on how you're going to mount it, and some helmets just straight up work better than others. So here's the settings I'm using for Instagram. I'll do 4K, Super View, 24 frames per second, and this is where I'll lock my shutter at 1/48th, which is double the shutter speed. Hyper Smooth, I'll turn it on, but not on boost. Sharpness, I'll put to low, and the color I'll set to flat. If I'm going to shoot for YouTube, I will shoot horizontally and do pretty much all of the same settings. However, I'll set my resolution to 5.3K, and this allows me to put the camera into the new Hyperview lens. Hyperview is a wider frame than Super View, and in my opinion, it looks awesome for shooting horizontally. However, for me personally, the distortion is just a bit too much if you do it vertically. So I'll stick to Super View if I'm going to shoot vertical. So apart from the smaller footprint of the GoPro Hero 11, my favorite added feature for sure is the new Hyperview lens. I feel like with the new Hyperview mode, you get even more motion blur than you would get with Super View, and you get a greater sense of speed overall. When it comes to coloring my footage and editing it, if I'm going to be shooting for YouTube, I'll pretty much do all of my color in DaVinci Resolve these days. It's kind of the industry standard for color, and that's kind of start to finish what I use now for editing. However, for Instagram, I'll pretty much just hop on the GoPro app. I pay for the yearly GoPro plan, so I get all the added filters and all of that. I'll usually just kind of do a basic grade, maybe a little bit of exposure control, some contrast, sort of go through all those sliders there and get the image looking pretty good. And then from there, I'll usually add on one of the filters and lower the intensity. Generally, the intensity of the filters at 100% is a bit too much for my liking. So I usually hover around 50 to 60%, somewhere in there. Usually gets me looking pretty good. All right, I hope you got something out of this video. If you have any other questions on setup or GoPros in general, feel free to drop them in the comments. And we'll see you guys in the next video.